Welcome to the video, guys. We had the Liaison Committee grilling Boris Johnson, or apparently that was what it was supposed to be. It was really just a group of Remainers taking shots at Boris Johnson over Dominic Cummings. Because obviously they've got absolutely nothing better to do at the moment, or you would think that anyway. With both the SNP MP you see on the screen here, Pete, talking absolute rubbish and citing figures that he claims represents the whole of the country, when in fact they was likely just commissioned by someone who hates Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson. We also have Yvette Cooper screaming and shouting at Boris Johnson, getting herself into a proper fit of rage, and even being stupid enough to cite a Mumsnet poll in the Liaison Committee like that actually matters.
And a good afternoon, Prime Minister, and it's good to see you in front of the Liaison Committee and for the first time ever. Can I just start by saying to you, I actually think that you've been quite brave. Brave in the way that you've been prepared to sacrifice the credibility and popularity of your own government just to stand by your man. You've done something I've never seen done in the 20 years I've been in the House. You've somehow managed to unite a nation in condemnation and indignation over your handling of Mr Cummings. And as the chairman alluded, 80% of the British public now think Dominic Cummings broke the rules. 63% said you should sack him. But the most worrying thing, Prime Minister, is 65% say his conduct makes it less likely that the public will now follow lockdown rules. Surely, Prime Minister, surely no man is more important than keeping this nation safe.
Well, Pete, if I may respectfully say, in addition to what I've already said about that particular matter, a lot of what was written and said over Saturday and Sunday was false in respect of my advisor. It wasn't correct, and I think that he's had an opportunity to clear the matter up, and notwithstanding the various party political points that you may seek to make, I think the best, and your point about the message, I respectfully disagree. I think actually the best way to clarify the message, the best way for people to understand what we need to do next is for us all to move on and focus on what we're doing tomorrow, what we're doing on Tuesday.
I mean, did you listen to that sanctimonious piece of shit? What the actual hell is this guy on about? Constantly throwing as many buzzwords out there as he can, trying to seem as animated as possible so he can hopefully get people on board and virtue signal to Twitter, when in actual fact he just talked complete nonsense, citing 80% of this and 65% of that without actually giving us the source or the size of such polls, which the only polls I've seen recently consisted of 1,160 people, so hardly a true representation of the country, is it? And let's be honest, these polls are always answered by the political activists. Who else is putting themselves forward for a poll about politics? Let's be honest. But I expect he is right, that Boris Johnson has done something he has never seen done in the House of Commons in the 20 years he's been there. And do you know what that is? It's called standing up to the media outrage mob. You know, the one we've been seeing for the last 4 or 5 days now that has completely taken over the news cycle, obviously with an attempt to derail Brexit, which I will get into in a separate video. I would also love to know where the claim comes from that he has united the entire country in indignation against his government, when that is certainly not the case. It is just your Ramonin echo chamber. We know what the ploy is, it's getting kind of boring now, but they're going to try and milk it as much as possible, with obviously Barnier coming out, as I will cover in a separate video, along with some other developments. Now, as you lot know, there is something that he is missing, and that is of course the fact that plenty of MPs from all sides, both Labour, Conservative and SNP, have broke the rules, which is kind of irrelevant, but there is also polls out suggesting that up to 50% of people are breaking the lockdown rules in general. You know, the people he's out here screaming that are so against what Dominic Cummings did. There's a high chance that most of them have already broke the lockdown rules, as we see with Alistair Campbell today, who was on Sky News yesterday screaming and shouting his mouth off like a snivelling shitweasel, much like this one we have here. Now, I don't need to comment on what Boris Johnson said, because he just pointed out the straight facts of it, that this is just a political point scoring exercise, as we have all known for many days now. pretty much from the moment it started. But let's move on, we got one more clip to look at from old Poncy Pete here, before we listen to the screeching lunatic that is Yvette Cooper.
Agree entirely with the seriousness of the situation, but I don't think anybody can understand why Mr. Cummings is so pivotal to moving this country forward dealing with coronavirus. This is now a distraction. People are very annoyed, Prime Minister. Is that on your radar?
Well, I think, Simon, you've made that point, I think, several times now. And my respectful point to you is, yes, I do understand people's feelings. I do understand why people feel such indignation about the whole business and the pain of the whole business of the lockdown. But I really also think that what they want now is for us to focus on them and their needs, rather than on a political ding-dong about what one advisor may or may not have done. And to repeat an important point, which I don't think you've acknowledged, a lot of the allegations that were made about that advisor were simply not correct. And I don't think that point has been sufficiently acknowledged.
Well, I can answer his stupid question for him. No, it's probably not on his radar. He likely doesn't care. He's just going to repeat the facts of it and tell yous all eventually shut up, which you will have to do. But it's actually got nothing to do with Dominic Cummings being central to the coronavirus situation. What it is Boris Johnson not allowing the media to dictate who will be his advisor. They do not run the government, Boris Johnson does, and that is what he is showing them. He is essentially sticking his middle finger up to these people, as he says at the end of that clip, when he points out that is nothing more than political advice, which essentially he doesn't care about. Well done on that, Boris. It's a shame you're not so tough on other things, really. These Ramona MPs really need to realise that it's only just them and the political activists that actually care about politics that even know this is happening. Most people see the news and switch it off, especially when they see the questions that was coming out of the daily press conference last night. It was a pathetic joke. As far as I remember, there was only one journalist who actually asked something about what was said in the press conference rather than about Dominic Cummings. I do like how Boris Johnson absolutely destroyed his party political point scoring, which I'm sure you will all agree that 100% was. Now, let's move on to Yvette Cooper, because arguably she's even worse than this idiot.
Let me ask you about your instructions now to parents who either have COVID or have the symptoms of COVID, who won't know how seriously they're going to get it, and who have no local childcare available. Is the message to those parents now the one from Jenny Harries to stay at home unless there's a risk to life, and if you do get ill, contact the community hubs? Or is it the message from the Transport Secretary and the Communities Secretary to be able to travel to wherever you have a support network? In the words of Robert Jenrick this morning, if you don't have ready access to childcare, then you can do as Dominic Cummings did. Which is it?
Well, I'm not certain, Yvette, that there's as much of a discrepancy between those two bits of advice as you suggest. And I think what Jenny was trying to say was that if you've got exceptional difficulties with childcare, then you should take account of them.
Okay, but we're not talking about exceptional difficulties with childcare. We're talking about the very normal difficulties with childcare. A survey from Mumsnet today found that a quarter of parents said they didn't have access to local childcare when they had COVID and were in exactly the same circumstances as Dominic Cummings. A third of them say they'd be more likely to break the rules now.
Well, I love the way that Boris Johnson answered that, saying that they are no different. She is just trying to make a difference up, which is what they have been trying to do the entire time, with many of these Labour MPs and media defenders claiming that because Labour MPs done it, it doesn't matter because they're not the government, blatantly showing it's all because of Dominic Cummings. But you heard her say about parents' difficulties with childcare if they have coronavirus. which I think you would agree is an exceptional difficulty and not something that is normal. But you then hear her contradict herself after Boris Johnson answered her, saying she wasn't talking about that, which is just complete nonsense if you ask me, and shows that she doesn't care what he says. She is there to political point score. It's a Remain attack against the Brexiteer government and his advisor. I mean, I really don't understand how she thinks that having coronavirus wouldn't be an exceptional difficulty when looking after a child. You know, none of what she said actually makes sense once Boris Johnson answers her, and she has to backtrack to try and make out like he didn't answer her question when you all heard that he did.
So if you are trying to tackle local outbreaks and prevent them spreading, you need to be giving clear advice to parents. Yeah. And what is it? Because it is not clear to me from listening to Jenny Harries and to Robert Jenrick what that advice to parents who are in Dominic Cummings' situation.
The clear advice is to stay at home unless you absolutely have to go to work to do your job. If you have exceptional problems with childcare, then that may cause you to vary your arrangements, and that's clear. Fundamental advice remains absolutely unchanged, which is wash your hands, observe social distancing, and self-isolate if you have symptoms and get a test.
I'm asking specifically about your advice to parents who have COVID. Advice to parents you are not giving. The reason that you are not giving, the reason you are ducking it, the reason you're trying to.
I'm not ducking. Actually, I've just said that I agree. I don't think that you're actually
travel across the country, even though it may mean them having to go into a hospital somewhere else where they may see further infections. Do you want them to do that? Or do you want them to stay put when they don't have local childcare, like around a quarter of parents?
Yvette, I think you'd have to look at each individual case, and there were particular circumstances that my advisor explained. I think what Jenny Harries was trying to say was that where there are exceptional difficulties, then people needed to take account of them. And other than that, I don't really know what I can add.
No, here's the problem, Prime Minister. The reason you are ducking this is because the reason you're not giving people a straight answer is because you are trying to protect Dominic Cummings. The reason you've sent all of your ministers out to say fudgy things and unclear things is because you are trying not to incriminate Dominic Cummings and you don't want to apologise for him. The problem is that means you are putting your political concerns ahead of clear public health messages to parents who have coronavirus. And the consequence of that is putting your political concerns above the national interest. You are trashing, in the words of public
question, please.
If I may say so, I don't wish to be.
Let me put this to you as a precise question. On the way into this crisis, you were criticised for getting a whole series of messages, decisions wrong on shaking hands, on business as usual, on letting Cheltenham go ahead.
Have a question, please.
A series of those things, and 40,000 people are dead. We need you to get this right now. So can you tell us, you have a choice between protecting Dominic Cummings and putting the national interest first. Which will it be, Prime Minister?
Well, I think my choice is the choice that the British people will want us all to make, Yvette, and that is, as far as we possibly can, to lay aside party political point scoring and to put the national interest first, and to be very clear with the British public about what we want to do and how we want to take this country forward. And I think that this conversation has, to my mind, illuminated why it's so important for us to move on and be very clear with the British public about how we want to deal with that and how we want to make progress. And frankly, when they hear nothing but politicians squabbling and bickering, it's no wonder that they feel confused and bewildered.
Right, well, he answers her straight away at the beginning of that clip, stating obviously, if you have to do something to protect your child, then do it. This goes without saying and has been known and would go for anyone anyway. Like you're going to listen to the government if it's going to risk your child's health. Get real, please. This is something not enough people are pointing out. It's just insanity. But the party political point scoring comes back again when she tries to claim that he didn't answer the question, which of course he did. Then he tried to elaborate afterwards for the general public. If they was to catch coronavirus, that would be to go and get tested and isolate yourselves with the usual old wash your hands malarkey we we've been told for months now. I really don't get where these Labour MPs and the media think this is making themselves look very good. They really are just looking like a bunch of bullies with a political agenda to settle, which we all know they do. Just remember back to when Boris Johnson won the Conservative Party leadership, what happened when he appointed him as his chief advisor. The media and Remain politicians literally shit the bed. But my guess is her figures around that quarter of parent statement obviously is coming from Mumsnet, which we all know that she favours given what she said in the Liaison committee. It's actually pathetic that she thinks that is an authoritative source to gauge public mood. You will notice though, no matter what Boris Johnson says, even if it is based in reality on, of course, what Dominic Cummings has told us during his little press conference the other day, she still claims he's ducking it because she needs the political point score. She can't let this go. Brexit is coming soon. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, it sounds like Boris Johnson has been giving straight answers. You will have to let me know down in the comments below. He was actually a lot straighter with them than I thought he was going to be. Certainly a lot straighter than they deserve. But this absolute idiot tops it off when she claims that Boris Johnson is putting political concerns ahead of the national interest. What do you think the media and you are doing right now? The self-awareness of these people is unreal. I will say though, towards the end of that clip that we just played there, I did think she was actually going to ask him a meaningful question about his handling of the coronavirus situation. But that lasted less than 5 seconds because obviously it was all about Dominic Cummings. She doesn't actually care about the people of this country or what's going on with real people's lives surrounding this situation. She only cares about attacking Dominic Cummings, as you see. But after going on about all of the things that he needed to get right, you find out it's literally just about Dominic Cummings because she wants him to sack him. That's what she considers getting it right for the nation in relation to the coronavirus, showing you this was a political point scoring session and nothing more. What an absolute joke she is. But as was a common theme during this committee session, Boris Johnson quickly answered her question and pointed out her blatant political point scoring for anyone who was watching. So well done on that, I suppose. Well, I'm sure you will all agree that was completely pathetic and a waste of time. It was essentially allowing these lot to throw out political point scoring points with literally no evidence to back them up, using piss poor polling results and their emotional feelings while not cleaning the wax out of their ears to listen to what the Prime Minister actually said. Bunch of hacks, just like the media. But on that note guys, I am going to end the video there. Now before I go, I've started doing live streams and uploading gaming content on my second channel. If you would like to come and join me for a live stream to chat in real time, have an interest in gaming related content on YouTube, or just want to follow me over there because you are a legend, the link will be down in the video description below and as a pinned comment. I hope to see you all there. Now as always, before I go, I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot, and I will see you all in the next one.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.